unbelievable. Now, I've known that leftist insanity is beyond the bounds of belief, but this past weekend I saw something that stretches it even beyond that. Can you believe, I don't know if you're familiar with this story, but a knitting and crochet website, has banned any posts supporting, or even any crochets or projects, whatever you call it, supporting or indicating any support at all for Donald Trump. Now, here's the thing. I could understand it if the site banned political discussion, because let's face it, after all, it's knitting and crochet. What does that got to do with politics? Basically nothing. But they specifically ban only Trump support or in any way. And in other words, if you want to say upload a project that you've done of let's say socks with a hammer and sickle design, that is okay. If you want to express support for say presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren, that's okay. Or if you want to express support for, obviously now former candidate, because that's what he's going to be soon, Pete Buttigieg, that's okay too. But if you in any way show support for Trump, you're out at that website. And not only that, they denounce Trump as a white supremacist and people that support him as basically being racist. Now, I know you probably think I'm exaggerating, but you know what? We're going to go to the Ravelry website. And by the way, Ravelry is like kind of like the Facebook for in the knitting world and crochet. So we're going to go there, and I'm going to show you their policy. It's unbelievable just how insane they have gotten. And we're also going to see how, in general, the social justice warriors are really resembling the Red Guards of China. Remember the Red Guards from the 1960s? They are resembling them by bullying tactics, denouncing people for the least slight. And we're going to see how this whole thing actually was started in January by a very innocent post by somebody, and this is how it ended up with the Red Guard social justice warriors of the knitting world going berserk. So let's go take a look at the Ravelry.com new policy, and you're not going to believe it. We're on the Ravelry website with their new policy, and you can see just how chock full of Trump derangement syndrome they are from their title. Here it is. New policy. Do not post in support of Trump or his administration. Now, a reminder, you could post politics. That's okay. You could post in favor of Elizabeth Warren or any other candidate, or you could even upload projects with hammer and sickle, socks, whatever. But no posts in support of Trump or his administration, as it says. And here it is, flat out. We are banning support of Donald Trump and his administration on Ravelry. And here, he says, we cannot provide a space that is inclusive of all and also allow support for open white supremacy. Got that? And then, this is unbelievable. Support of the Trump administration is undeniably support for white supremacy. So that means for all you people out there, like half the country that support Trump, actually it's more than half the country, but for over half or more of the country that support Trump, you are, according to Ravelry, racist. Now, here they have these policy notes. It says here, how big of them? You can still participate if you do, in fact, support the administration. You just can't talk about it here. You have to keep your mouth shut. It says, we are not endorsing the Democrats nor banning Republicans. Yeah, but notice the only person group they're banning is people that support Trump. So, yeah, it does sound like you're endorsing the Democrats by default, definitely. We are definitely not banning conservative politics. Hate groups and intolerance are different from other types of political positions. By the way, you see what they're doing here? They're redefining being a support for Trump, or really being conservative, as a hate group. It says, we are, oh, how big of them? Here, look at this. We are not banning people for past support. Oh, how big of you. We are not banning people for, so look here, now here, let's see where they got this brilliant idea from. It says here, much of this policy was first written by a role-playing game site, not unlike Ravelry, but for RPGs, named RPG.net. We thank them for their thoughtful insight. So let's go to this RPG, a role-playing game site. This is like a fantasy site. And let's see, just real quick, how they took their, almost word for word, their policy from them. Okay, here we are on the RPG website. A reminder, this is for people that want to assume fantasy identity in a game online. So here, it's the same thing, new ban. This was from October of last year, October 29th, 2018. New ban, do not post in support of Trump or his administration, which is identical. So they're not even being original over at Ravelry. And then here, the policy outline is basically word for word identical. So, so basically Ravelry is taking their cue from a fantasy game website. Yeah, just to remind everybody, RPG, that website that Ravelry took almost word for word their policy from, that stands for role-playing games. That's a site where people, role-playing game is where people assume an identity in a game. And in other words, fantasy, a fantasy sites. So people engaged in role-playing fantasy, or people that run the site, role-playing games, fantasies, are now jumping into the fray of social justice warrior leftist politics. It's and purging people. And so now, finally, let's go to this Quillen website, I believe the name is, and we're going to see how this all started back in January from a very, very innocent post, and how this woman became a bullying victim of left-wing bullying, and they by bullies that were acting just like the Red Guards of China. And then also another woman who just couldn't take it any longer, and we'll see how she was also bullied. So let's go take a look, and we're going there right now. This is the Quillette website. By the way, I think I said Quillen or something. It's Quillette. And the article was published in February 17th, 2019. The title, A Witch Hunt on Instagram. Now, you copy that down, and if you want, do a search, a web search, because this is a long article. I'm only going to cover a little bit of it, but it's an incredible, incredible article written by Catherine Jebsen Moore about this witch hunt. This is the genesis of what all this Trump derangement syndrome over at Ravelry is all about. So this thing started basically here, as she explains, the author explains, here we go. On January 7th, Karen Templer, a knitting designer and owner of the online store Fringe Association, published an innocuous blog post on her website entitled 2019, My Year of Color, in which she enthused about her forthcoming trip to India. To most observers, Templer's post will read like a guileless account of her hopes and aspirations for her upcoming travels. You can read it. It is innocuous. But here's the thing that set off the social justice warrior Red Guards. And here it is. This is what started the whole thing. So she says here, she's thrilled about going to India. But she says, to a suburban Midwestern teenager with a severe anxiety disorder, that was like being offered a seat on a flight to Mars.
So that's what started it. That one sentence, which, how innocuous is that? Like, I'm going to India. It was like because I don't travel that much. It was like a flight to Mars. So, but look what happens here. Here, the author says, and what on earth could be wrong with any of that? Rather a lot, it turns out. After a series of encouraging posts from well-wishers, the comment thread took an aggressively inquisitorial turn. Templar's previous posts had typically garnered between 3 and 30 comments, but My Year of Color has 197 at the time of writing. One of the first people to attack Templar was a user named Alex J. Klein, who wrote, "Karen, I'd ask you to reread what you wrote and think about how your words feed into a colonialist, imperialist mindset toward India and other non-Western countries." See, already when you see colonialist, imperial, you know this coming from social justice people and the Red Guards. Multiple times, you compare the idea of going to India to the idea of going to another planet. How do you think a person from India would feel to hear that? And she says, Templar politely explained that Mars and India both felt unattainable to her as a child. This comparison to Night Striker as imperialist actually strikes me as okay, but she promised to give the matter some thought. I've had responses from several Indian friends and readers today, she added, who had nothing but positive and encouraging responses. I'll have to see if anything I said offended them. Evidently unimpressed, Klein retorted, instead of asking your Indian friends to perform more emotional labor from you and assuage your white woman's tears, maybe do some reflection on how your equation of India with an alien world reinforces an other mindset that is at the core of imperialism and colonialism. But basically, this, make a long story short, this ended up the original poster here ended up being attacked by a multitude of social justice warriors that harassed and bullied her. She eventually, apologized. Guess what? Still wasn't enough for him. Like I said, I really, really hope you read this article. Now, what happened is obviously the knitting forums. The big one is Ravelry. Obviously, they were talking about this. So, because you wonder how does a knitting forum go from knitting to politics? Well, here it is. The attack of the social justice warrior Red Guards is what caused it. And then now one person decided to stand up to the mob here, and here it says, amid the conformist cacophony of affirming anti-racists, however, one knitter decided to object. Maria Tuskin of TuskinKnits.com posted a video above on YouTube in response to the criticism she had received in another now deleted video. She began by explaining that Instagram had been enormously helpful in growing her business before announcing that after nearly 4 years on the platform, she would take an indefinite break, referring to the mobbing of Karen Templar. Tuskin said, and then she, you could read it here, but she was pointed out the obvious, which is this social justice mob going berserk. Now, what's unfortunately for Maria Tuskin is there was a boycott on her. Here they're gloating, the social justice warriors. It will be easy to boycott this person, wrote an Instagram user with the handle at Knit Erotica. No amount of reason will change a zealot like Tuskin Knit's mind, but we can make sure they feel their hatred reflected in their bank accounts and their follower accounts until they are crying into the void. Another Instagram user, Webbloom, published a post in which she asked, how does Tuskin still have 10,000 followers? I hope they keep dwindling. She doesn't deserve our support. And on and on and on. So she is, her business is being harmed by this ridiculous boycott organized by social justice Red Guards. So, as I said, I'm not into this whole knitting and crochet deal, but if any of you are out there and need to buy some supplies, check out Maria Tuscan of TuscanKnits.com, because she really does need your help due to this onslaught of insane social justice warriors trying to ruin her. And so, as I said, just go ahead here where they mentioned Ravelry. Yeah, see, at Ravelry, a heavily moderated discussion took place suggesting ways in which the site could use positive discrimination to show more patterns. So this is the genesis of it. It all started last January with, as we saw, a rather innocuous post about a woman knitter that was excited about going to India, and she committed the thought crime of saying it was like going to Mars, and everything snowballed into this.
Now that last woman from the with her video, she's being bullied. She's being her business is being ruined by these social justice warrior Red Guard types. So, like I say, I'm not into knitting and crochet, but anybody out there that's into that, you might want to consider making your purchases from this woman to counter the incredible amount of bullying she is currently undergoing. So this is it. This is the latest. And by the way, this is all completely counterproductive, because I'm guessing that most of the women involved in knitting are sort of conservative types or apolitical, but this thing shocks them into realizing what kind of world we're in with these leftists. And this is only going to help the Trump 2020 landslide. So I'll see you guys later.